Good morning, Richland County. It is 9:30 a.m. on the last day of February, February 28th. Richland County Board of Commissioners is now in session. I'm Commissioner Cliff here, with my fellow commissioners. Tony Barrow, Darrell Banks, Stacey Paul, Andrew Keller, County Administrator, David Morgenstern is here. From the media, we have Carl Hunnell, and online we have Al Lawrence, Greg Kale from WMFD. And we have Lori Benson here, Director of Family Services, and the first order of business will be the Youth and Family Council contract. Lori, I'll turn it over to you to discuss our potential contract.
Okay. Youth and Family Council had asked Richland County Job and Family Services as the fiscal agent to go ahead and extend some contracts for services that had been provided in 2022, between January and December of 2022. With the transition that happened at the end of November and into December, the council did not get proposals out for services. So they just wanted to extend these contracts to providers to offer the same types of services that had been offered in 2022. So what they asked me to do was to take half the amount of the contracted, half of the contracted amount for 2022 to cover the 6-month period of January through June of 2023. However, by the time the council had made this decision, already into the middle of January, and we were receiving some January bills for services because we had extended the contract dates and allowed the service providers to use remaining balances. So those that had remaining balances were already billing for that. So what we did instead was we took any expenses that were paid for January services from that 50% contract amount. And that is the contract amount we're proposing for February 1st of 2023 through June 2023. For instance, Community Action for Capable Youth received $30,000 in 2022 for parent education services. We're proposing $15,000 for Casey the remainder of 2023 through June to cover those same services. They did not bill for any services in January. I'm proposing the full 15,000.
Maybe this is a question for Darrell and you. I do have a concern about one of the expenditures, which would be Ultra Yoga and Massage. Darrell, you had a chance to talk to Lori on that? Not feel really comfortable proving any monies to them at this time.
Yeah, we've talked about it. Stand on that.
We did talk about the contracts in general. We said we would try to honor what the council was requesting. I knew there was a concern about the yoga contract. But I did express to the council that any of these contracts would be upon the approval of all of you.
But we can't.
And that they're
individually, we don't have to. All of it.
I mean, as our rep, I'll lean on you. I don't think that's one that I'm overly fond of until the transitions are done.
Nor am I, and I have no problem with the rest of them, passing them and leaving that one.
Andrew, you have any thoughts?
I don't have anything to add.
Comfortable with us taking it out?
These are individual contracts, Lori,
yes, they are. Mhm.
right? So as long as the family council and the commissioners have the discretion to not renew, I see that as being within the board's discretion.
Yes. And again, the council was aware that this was a contract that was somewhat debatable, so to speak.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve all with the exception of Ultra Yoga and Massage, which I would not approve. So I would approve the contracts as submitted minus the Ultra Yoga and Massage.
Which would take us from 153 to 137,000.
And I'll second that.
Commissioner Mears.
Yes.
Commissioner Banks.
Yes.
Rivera.
Yes.
Any questions on this particular contract? I'll start with you, Carl.
These are half a year.
It's really 5 months, right, Lori?
Yes, yes. Because again, we'd already had some billing for January and remaining balances that could cover those costs
Is retroactive February 1.
to February 1, yes.
And other, I'll get back to the yoga in a minute, but what's some of the other stuff for?
We have mentoring services through neighborhood or North End Collaborative. And then they also do a mentoring and a respite care service as well. So there are two separate contracts. And then there is a contract for Richland County Children's Services to help with direct placements of youth. And then the Young Women's Christian Association, that is actually a contract we're providing to that entity to do what we're calling a childcare training in May. And those funds came to the council through the Women's Fund. So we're just passing that along to the YWCA to handle that training for us, for the council.
So if you went from 153 to 137, I'm assuming ultra yoga and massage was 16.
Yes, it was.
And I guess for the commissioners, what are the concerns about ultra yoga and massage? That's something that's being seen about kind of non-included.
I don't think it's something we want to talk about at this time.
Go ahead.
Al, anything?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Greg?
Can you just, I guess for the record, services, what else is going to provide? Those services provided to.
It's yoga services to preschool age children and children who are involved with multiple systems, such as maybe a youth that's involved with sports and children's services.
It's not to say we won't contract with them moving forward, just for this round.
How long have you been contracting with, is that a business? And what is it? Is that the name of the business, ultra yoga and massage?
That is the name of the business. The business address is,
I might have it. Hold on.
I have it. I have the contract right here in front of me. I believe this is the owner. The contract would have been with the owner operator, and the address of the business is 308 East Main Street, Lexington, Ohio.
How long have you had a contract?
The first contract was in 2021.
This is not something that's full-time.
No.
Anything else, gentlemen? Thank you very much, Lori. An interview at 9:45. It was about 6 minutes to clear up some other items on the agenda. Can I have a motion to start the proceedings February 23rd?
I'll move.
Second.
Commissioner Mears.
Yes.
Commissioner Banks.
Yes.
Rivera.
Yes.
Have a motion to approve requisitions.
So move.
Second.
Commissioner Mears.
Yes.
Commissioner Banks.
Yes.
Commissioner Rivera.
Yes.
Motion to end appropriations and transfer.
I need to make an amendment to that. Yesterday while I was prepping, I saw requests from juvenile court that had asked for certification of 47-85681. and then appropriations of that amount and another $225. There was no cash in Fund 326. So their request for appropriation exceeded certification amount because that's all they would have on hand. So Mr. Bumpus has since revised that, and I believe Stacy, you put that in the packet.
I didn't copy it for everybody, but it's revised. The 225 for the cell phone and then the 47,631.81 for the transfer
Right.
out.
They just reduced their transfers out
Yep.
by $225. So the request for appropriation matches the revenue in the fund. So I'll make a motion to approve the amended request.
Second.
Commissioner Mears,
Yes.
Burbank,
Yes.
Commissioner Pharaoh.
Yes.
Now we have two wastewater contracts with COSI for IT backup disaster recovery. With a term of 1 year with COSI.
I'll make a motion to approve both contracts, one for the services and the other in case of disaster.
I will second that.
Commissioner Mears,
Yes.
Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Commissioner Pharaoh.
Yes.
I do want to point out on the contract for maintenance, the increase from last year to this year is really minimal for stations. It's up 1.8%. For the server, it's 2.5%. No change at all for the server backup is actually reduced from $100 to $75. I did want to point that out. The next order of business is to accept two parcels on the right-of-way easements for the Anderson Road project, which is a small bridge replacement.
I'll make a motion that we accept both properties with gratitude.
Second.
Commissioner Mears,
Yes.
Banks,
Yes.
Yes.
Last order of business we have on the agenda is to authorize an internal job posting of child support for a hearing officer.
So moved. Second.
Commissioner Mears,
Yes.
Commissioner Banks,
Yes.
Pharaoh.
Yes.
Few minutes before we break into executive session, any questions on any of this material? Carl?
Yeah, the cost on those COSI contracts. Whether it's monthly or annual, whatever.
So the disaster contract only happens if there's a disaster.
Disaster.
There's no cost unless there's a disaster.
The
But
maintenance.
they're not, they don't have a fee listed for that.
Well, the fee would be listed as part of the labor and time, which is in the maintenance contract. It depends on what's required in the disaster recovery. But last year's total based on biannual activity for 2022 was 5,496. And this year, we're looking at 6,960. Now, I did say the server backup was reduced from $100 to $75, but there are two servers now. We partitioned the servers. So instead of one, there's two that require maintenance.
Okay, that's good enough for me. Thank you.
Sure.
I was gonna go over January financials, but with 2 minutes, I'll wait until the back end of the meeting. Have some good news there.
Okay. Okay. Well, we'll recess for 1 minute and then we'll go into executive session. Turns out that the guy sits down. First thing he says is,
Hey, Greg Kale.
Talk to Colleen Mitchell this afternoon,
he's got a class three.
a little airtime.
He's too. And he says, this is not busy. It is 9:46. The Richland County Board of Commissioners is back in session. And I would like to have a motion to go into a session to discuss potential employment of a employee.
I'll move. Second.
Mears.
Yes.
Commissioner Banks.
Yes.
Commissioner Vero.
Yes.
It is 10:50 a.m. The Mercer County Board of Commissioners is out of executive session from the employment interview and discussion of a public employee. No action to be taken at this time. To go back into executive. Audio clean.
I'll move.
Second.
Commissioner Mears,
Yes.
Arrow.
Yes.
It is 11:01 a.m. The Richland County Board of Commissioners is back in session. I'd like to ask for a motion to accept the contract with commercial cleaning, custodial cleaning services effective April 1st, 2023 through March 31st, 2024, with an option to consecutive years following that. Cost of $20,632.22.
So move.
Second.
Mr. Mears,
Yes.
Mr. Banks,
Yes.
Commissioner Vero.
Yes.
Anybody online?
Have any questions?
Nope, not for me.
Okay, thanks, Carl.
Not for me either.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
You guys want to know January financials?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right, so Pat had sent out January financials. He apologized for sending them out a little late. They're waiting on a couple things. All right, so let's start with, again, we're talking January 2023 revenues, even though we're almost at the end of February, in comparison to January 2022. So what I always try to do when I go through the financials is, to the best as possible, and it's never easy, to kind of do an apples to apples comparison. Because revenues don't always hit at the same time, expenses don't always hit at the same time, and I'll get to that on both of them. So if you look at initial revenues for January of 2023, I first got it, I looked at that, we were 34% better in January of 23 than January 22. And I said, wait a minute, that's a lot of money. I mean, that could be, but I said, no, that isn't right. So my thought process then is, okay, let me look at our top 8 revenue sources. And I suspect probably a payment hasn't hit that maybe hit in January last year. And that was the case. We did not receive, in January of 22 last year, our casino tax payment that hit almost immediately at the beginning of February. So I backed out from our top revenue. You're looking at expenses right now, by the way. I backed out the casino tax from our January 23 revenues to compare our top revenue sources to get a more apples to apples comparison from January 23 to January 22. If you do that, we are still 19.2% better on our top revenue sources in January of 23 to January 22. And the answers for that are quite simple. Sales tax, when comparing the two Januaries, were much better. They were approximately, let me get you the exact amount. I have a separate spreadsheet for that because the averages aren't the same. Give me one second. So sales tax, when looking at January 23 to January 22, 13.28% better. Now, if you start to look at some of the sales taxes that they send out ahead of time, if you saw the most recent issuance from the Ohio Department of Taxation, 3 months from now, we are not expecting to have sales tax better than the previous month. So somewhere around March or April, we're probably going to be equal to the previous month. So don't think that it's trending on 13% for the remainder of the year, but it's good to know that we started out on a good foot. The other obvious driver for the top revenue source increase is interest earnings, which we knew in talking to Bart, 179% better in January of 23 to January 22. We made 65 grand in January 22, made 183,000 in January of 23. So if you look at it, our total revenue for January of 23, removing the casino tax out of that, we still appear to be 15% better in January of 23 than we were in January of 22 overall. And the primary drivers are sales tax and interest. Al, Carl, any questions on the revenue side?
Yeah, so those are revenues from October activity, correct?
Sales tax, that's correct.
And what was total revenue when you back out the casino tax? What was the dollar amount?
That was 2,733. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. 3,260,755.44.
And those are the top 7 minus casino
Now
tax.
that's total. So our
Okay,
casino,
total.
let me back that out. Let me give you the casino to be exact. Casino tax to be exact was 424,771.57. So if you back that out of the total revenue for the month, which was 3,685, you get to that 3,260, Carl. It's about 3.2 million. Now, if you just do the top revenue sources, excluding the casino, for January 23, we were 2,690,275. In January of 22, we were 2,333,188. That's 15% better.
Now, it won't have any impact on these numbers because it hadn't started yet, but will casino tax, will it begin to include legal legal sports betting in Ohio? Would that be part of casino, or will the county get any share of that?
No, there's no additional monies from that.
Okay. That's what I had.
All right, so now expenses. Same thing. When I first looked at the spreadsheet, we were 11% better in January 23 and 22. And I went, wait a minute here, that's gotta be, there's gotta be a similar reason. So I individually went through all of our expenses, and the answer to that, confirmed by Stacy, is our county shares that we give to other agencies, soil and water. Hold on a second. Transit, those won't hit until February. So that's, your main driver there is soil and water and some of your other ones. So that didn't hit on our January 2023 expenses. So what I did, I just carried those forward from an expense perspective to say, okay, if those hit in January of 23, how would we look in comparison to January of 22? And if that's the case, still very good news. Our expenses would only be 0.36%. So 0.4% more than January of 22. So good news on the revenue side and good news on the expense side. I mean, they're nearly, they're spot on pretty much.
Jump back to revenues for a second. What, when you talked about the fact that it would kind of even out by March and April, what does the state anticipate that evening out is going to be attributed to?
They never tell us what it's attributed to. They just say, here's your numbers. So what I got from the state, hold on a second, Carl. So they sent out preliminary sales tax. So this would be for what will hit ours in March. The state is forecasting or showing tentative collections. So our March sales tax is only supposed to be, according to the state, 1% better in March of 23 when compared to March of 22.
And again, sales tax revenues are 3 months behind.
It's
Okay.
3 or 2 because some people submit when they, just go with 3 months. We'll get into the weeds on how it works, but it's basically 3 months.
Okay. Well, I guess I'd open this up to all three commissioners' comments about revenues and expenses, at least through the first month of 2023.
Well, obviously, this is good news, and the fact that the expenses are only up 0.4% is also good news. But it's very early, and the state's already cautioning us, so once again, we'll be careful where we spend it.
All right, thank you.
Al?
Yeah, did anybody, whether it was Pat or the state, give any indication why that October figure was up? What drove that?
No, and oddly enough, I think you guys may have gotten this. We knew heading into the retail season, the Mansfield metro area was expected to be the one of the highest in terms of increases over that holiday season. If you recall from that distribution from state and the Chamber of Commerce, I asked the Chamber and Destination Mansfield, hey, great news. What's driving that? And we really didn't receive any information. And we couldn't put our heads together in terms of, man, that's good, but why? So that is not, let me say this, Al, that was not unanticipated. Projections were we were going to have a good retail season, probably better than some of the other areas in the state, if not the best in terms of growth. But the minutia of that, we just couldn't find out. So this isn't surprising. But then again, I don't want to be doom and gloom. It looks like in a couple months, then it's going to dip. So, which would be December and maybe after Christmas. So it looks like that October, November, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, looking good. And then December, we only show 1% growth.
Okay, anybody saying anything about, March and beyond, because we've kind of been up and down about people predicting, well, is it going to be good economy, bad economy? What kinds of things are you guys hearing about the economy this
If I
year?
could say one thing I thought was particularly encouraging was our income on investments and went up 179%. I think that bodes well for the economy overall. That's a great indicator, I think.
Careful, you gotta remember, public investments are very different than private investments. Oftentimes when the stock market is not doing as well, because of the nature of investments, as people move monies to bonds and whatnot, we do well. So I want to be very careful to caution that just because our interest earnings up, that isn't indicative that the economy as a whole is in good shape. Have to be careful of that.
Part of the sales tax is up because
Inflation. But this is what we've had this discussion. Because of inflation, people aren't, like we said, they're spending on food and gas, which we don't get. So there are so many factors that play into sales tax, Carl. We can't even get the internet breakdown yet from the state. So we can't show how much of that sales tax revenue is driven by internet sales. And that's not a knock on the state. It's difficult, but we can't even get that detail yet.
So are you saying that means it might be better or might be worse, or?
Well, I would imagine if
getting
it's 14% better, your internet sales were pretty good in October. But how much of our total sales tax that came our way because of internet, we can't see.
I can't understand why they can't section that.
I don't either. I don't understand it.
Yeah, that's all I had. Thank you.
That it, gentlemen? Okay, hearing any other business? Okay. Hearing that, the Richland County Board of Commissioners stands adjourned at 11:16 a.m.
And I asked, John